Right now, we're in that damage control portion of the Switch life cycle, where people are doing this thing where they're trying to say that, like, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X is totally outperforming the Switch now. It's too old and tired to remain relevant.
Woo, wake up, honey. It's a new Gaming Rift response video to Harman Smith. Woo. Although, starting things off strong, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, like, they do outperform the Switch. Hell, even the original Xbox One and PS4, they also outperform the Switch. A friendly reminder that the Switch is, in terms of power, is between an Xbox 360 and a base Xbox One, and it uses mid-2010 mobile technology. Of course the newer consoles and platforms are going to outperform it, like that's just common sense.
Nobody's looking forward to upcoming games. The console is on the decline. Sales are going down and nothing's coming out.
I mean, to give credit where credit's due, Nintendo themselves acknowledge that, yes, sales have been in a decline for some time now. So, yes, that's not a narrative, that's just facts.
I have seen people come out and claim,
friendly reminder to edit out long pauses from your videos,
that Nintendo Switch is currently in a drought.
I mean, 2024 sees the record lowest number of first-party games released by Nintendo on the Nintendo Switch. So, yes, an argument for whether or not there is a drought on the Switch is indeed possible. I mean, it's a record low. Does that mean that it's automatically a drought? Well, no. 6 games is a hell of a lot better than none. But I think the main reason people are arguing this is because first-party games is the main reason why you would buy a Switch, because whilst yes, a shit ton of third-party games like Doom Eternal, Hogwarts Legacy, they release on the Switch, but they are optimized poorly and they don't even have that great performance, so why would you buy a Switch with the intention of playing third-party games? Like, you just wouldn't do that, not when the competition can run those games better.
Which is just completely absurd, because just look how many games are already out on the console, right?
The hilarious thing about what he just said was that if you do the maths, PlayStation has more games than the Switch has. And obviously PC completely obliterates not just the Switch, but every single gaming platform in terms of how many games they have. So flexing how many games the Switch has compared to other platforms is not an argument you're going to win.
It is not possible for a console in this stage of its lifespan to be in a drought, because you constantly have games.
Well, yeah, you do have third-party games and a lot of them, but they all run like shit on the Switch compared to how they run on competitive hardware, meaning that yes, the only reason to buy the console is for the first-party games. And I'm sorry, but if you're only getting 6 new games in a year, compared to like 10, 11, 12, etc. in previous years, that isn't a good thing. Especially since you're not even guaranteed to like those 6 games. I mean, what if you only like 1 or 2 of them? Well, fuck, you're only getting 1 or 2 new games for the entire year, and to some people, that isn't good enough.
That you did not play when they first came out, that you could go back and pick up.
Yeah, that's a terrible argument for defending the Switch, because that same point can be applied to literally any video game platform, including some that have gone quote-unquote extinct, like the GameCube or DS. So, yes, that's not an argument you want to make.
Right. Again, it's just nothing but a cope. It's nothing but like an excuse to kind of complain about the console, but...
Friendly reminder that if we see a record low number of games to release on a platform, that is not a cope, that is a fact. If Nintendo themselves also come out and acknowledge declines in sales, that is not a cope, that is a fact. Ironically, the only one coping here is you, but then again it's Harman Smith, so what else is new?
That is the situation we're in right now.
I agree, that is the situation we're in. There's a record low number of games to be released on the Switch, and it seems like the real world reason for this is because there's going to be a upgrade to the Switch console in the foreseeable future. Whether it's the Switch Pro or a new piece of hardware altogether.
Where people are completely devaluing every game that comes out.
Obviously this is bullshit, because if they did that, they'd be devaluing games that come out on their quote-unquote platforms as well. So no, you're just wrong here. If anything, the only ports of games that are being devalued are the Switch ones, because assuming that third-party games even get released on the Switch, because some developers just skip the Switch altogether, it's not exactly like they perform well. Games like Doom Eternal and Hogwarts Legacy look dreadful on the Switch compared to the HD modern counterparts.
Whether it's Princess Peach Showtime or Famicom Detective Club or Mario & Luigi, like desperately trying to push this narrative that the Switch is on the way out.
I mean, if you want to get petty about it, the Switch was already outdated back in 2017 when it released, since it was weaker in terms of performance than consoles like the Xbox One and PS4 that were already 4 years into their life cycle when the Switch dropped.
Imminently, that it cannot remain competitive, that Nintendo is done.
I mean, for it to be competitive, you would have to argue that the Switch outperforms its competitors in any way ever, and it really doesn't. First-party Nintendo games was honestly the main thing it had, but even PC, via emulation and all the rest of it, they have more Nintendo games on their platform than the Nintendo console. So where does that leave you? Performance? Well, that's a joke, it gets outperformed by last gen. In terms of portability, well, PC has laptops and also the Steam Deck. In terms of price, well, yeah, it's cheap than most, modern consoles. However, you have the Xbox Series S and the PS4 Pro, which are cheaper and have better performance. Like, the Switch really has nothing to offer in 2024, and it's honestly a great thing that an upgrade is right around the corner, that we will see in either the next year or the next few years.
And not only is the Switch done, the next Nintendo console is not going to be as successful at it as it, and the PlayStation and Xbox will rule forever. It's like...
I feel like a misconception that you have is you're under the impression that most non-Nintendo gamers actually give a shit about the Switch. Like, most people really don't care. I mean, sure, you'll have people on the internet that are like, the Switch is shit, all the rest of it. But most of us really don't give a fuck.
Come on. Like, how many times have we gone through this song and dance? Like, how many times have we gone through these console generations? How many times have you completely ignored the handheld division?
Nintendo used to be dominant in the handheld market, I'll give you that one, but it's not dominant anymore. I mean, even PlayStation had the PS Vita back in the day, and obviously you have PC, which has laptops and the Steam Deck. So, yes, portability in handheld gaming isn't even a flex for Nintendo anymore.
Right, Nintendo has won every console generation.
The Nintendo Switch has sold more units than the PS5 or the Series X. Again, I will give you that, but that's not where the conversation ends, since the Nintendo Switch only makes up a small percentage of the gaming market, because you still have PC gaming and mobile gaming, which obviously are juggernauts and far eclipse the Switch in terms of units sold and all the rest of it. Also, sales don't really matter if the product you are paying for is objectively inferior to the competition.
Because so many people are unwilling to acknowledge the overwhelming success and popularity of their handhelds.
No one is forgetting or denying the great success Nintendo has had with their handhelds, but that's not where the argument stops. The Nintendo Switch is a hybrid console, a handheld and a gaming console, and it's the gaming console part that doesn't work very well in comparison to its competition. Like, sure, it's a very impressive handheld, but even compared to the Steam Deck, the Steam Deck, sure, it's more expensive, but you're paying for an objectively better product because you have more games and it performs games better. So, even as a handheld, which Nintendo usually are dominant towards, they don't even have that going for them anymore.
If the iPhone couldn't kill Nintendo platforms, nothing can.
In 2023 alone, there were more iPhones sold in that 1 year than Nintendo Switches have been sold at all. So, no, in terms of copies sold, iPhones very much surpassed the Switch. But the real question is, why the fuck are you making this comparison? You're comparing mobile phones to gaming consoles. It's a completely different market. Who the fuck cares? It's like there are probably more loaves of bread sold in a year than Nintendo Switches, but who the fuck cares?
And that is the reality that people are not willing to grasp, is that...
Well, yeah, you'd have to be a complete moron to think that Nintendo, of all people, are gonna go out of business, but I think what you are failing to grasp is that no one gives a fuck. Nintendo's gonna be fine, dude. None of these big billion-dollar companies like Microsoft or Sony or Steam, none of them are gonna go out of business. Who the fuck cares?
Nintendo is not going third-party, they're not putting their games on other software.
Yeah, Nintendo isn't gonna go third-party, and no, they're not gonna make their games anywhere else than Nintendo consoles, but for for the PC audience, that really doesn't matter because we can just emulate those games. I mean, you're gonna scream until your face is blue that emulation is piracy, but there is a clear distinction between the two.
They wouldn't even, like, put their characters in Fortnite, right?
I also find it really ironic that you put more effort into simping for Nintendo and riding their meat than how much effort you actually put into your own YouTube videos. Like, honestly, you're such a joke, my guy. But also, that's not a good thing. Like, if anything, it just shows how tight-fisted and anti-consumer Nintendo actually are. I mean, these are the same people that will literally terminate fan games and, like, hand out cease and desists and sue people just because they use their assets. I mean, they sued Gary's mod for, even though it's literally just a load of people creating their own projects. Like, who gives a fuck? If anything, fan games and mods and all the rest of it actually improve Nintendo's revenue, because you could have some people who have no interest in buying a Pokemon game. They could try out, like, I don't know, Project Pokemon on Roblox or what have you, legitimately enjoy themselves, and then they might go out and buy a Nintendo handheld. But if those games are just being terminated, well, people won't have the opportunity to play those free games, and as a result, they'd never buy a Nintendo console, because why the fuck would they spend £60 or $60 on a game that they're not even guaranteed to like?
The grim reality for these pretendos is that Nintendo is in a position where they can keep doing what they're doing indefinitely.
I think indefinitely is a bit of a stretch. Obviously, no company is truly invincible, and yeah, Nintendo obviously has the potential to go bankrupt if shit happens in the future. But once again, no one cares. Like, you're acting as though people are going out and saying that Nintendo is gonna die tomorrow, when no, that's obviously not the case. If people do go out and say that, then yeah, they're fucking stupid, I'll give you that, but I honestly don't think many are saying it.
Right, the Switch is monumentally successful, people play it regularly, people enjoy it, it keeps getting new releases, and yet we're led to believe constantly that every new game that comes out is a bomb, right?
The Switch is certainly successful, especially for a games console. However, it makes up such a small percentage of the overall gaming market that I think you're really overhyping this game's success. Especially since when many people criticize the games on the Switch, the dominant argument that they will use is they just don't run that very well on the Switch, especially for the price, since Nintendo will usually charge you full price for these games when, you know, they don't offer you the same performance or graphics or anything like that that the competition offers. I mean, the Switch absolute maximum is 1080p 60 FPS, like nothing above that, and even that's being generous, when 1080p 60s is honestly like the bare minimum you should expect from something like a PC or a Series X or a PS5.
You know, we were told Tears of the Kingdom was a bomb, we were told that Super Mario Bros. Wonder was a bomb, or Move It, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door.
Those games sold millions of copies, at least, Tears of the Kingdom and Super Mario Bros. Wonder did, but again, like, that's not the issue. The games themselves are good, but a reoccurring con for the Switch games is the performance. Like, they just don't run as well as they could on other modern hardware, and that's honestly a shame. And it's something that I hope Nintendo sorts out with the new console.
Like the upcoming Famicom Detective Club?
How the fuck can a game that hasn't even released yet be considered a bomb? Like, how the fuck does that make sense?
Right? Again, that was a big part of the narrative in regards to Famicom Detective Club, is that like, oh no, nobody plays these games, nobody cares about it, Nintendo has no idea what people want, but...
I feel like you went on the internet one time, saw one troll comment say these things, and then you just unironically took it as gospel. Like, I genuinely think that's what's happened here.
The game is actually doing extraordinarily well, right? Like, again, the narrative does not match up to reality.
Bless you. Also, the narrative, at the very least, with the whole drought thing, that is very much a reality. Because we've seen a record low number of first-party games release on the Switch, and Nintendo themselves acknowledge the decline in sales, which is why they're working on new hardware. Like, it very much is a reality, just not in the way that you were talking about.
And we're gonna see, like, in the next month or so, just how popular Echoes of Wisdom is. We're gonna see how popular that Super Mario Party is, right? We're gonna see how great, like, Mario and Luigi does, right?
Fucking hell, get yourself a tissue, my guy. Although, in fairness, I find it very funny that all you ever praise on the Nintendo Switch are first-party games. Like, does anyone else find that hilarious? Like, yes, the only thing that you talk about with the Nintendo Switch is first-party games, but that's not where the argument stops. Like, for example, with the PS5 or the Series X, sure, people talk about exclusives, of course they do. They talk about first-party games all the fucking time. But those platforms can perform third-party games very well, at a very good quality most of the time. But you don't ever talk about that with the Switch. I wonder why.
We are going to see a bunch of these games hit new heights. I would not be surprised if Mario & Luigi becomes, like, one of the best-selling games in the series, right? Not that the series has ever done poorly, but,
Use this video as a case study as to what you guys shouldn't do if you ever make your own YouTube videos. If you need a drink of water, that's absolutely fine, but drink in between takes and not when you're actually making a take.
You know, Mario Party's gonna do really well. You know, Zelda's really gonna do well for a top-down Zelda, right? Again, all I hear from the community is that, like, oh, Zelda's a spin-off, right? Mario Party is Mario Party. You know, Mario & Luigi, nobody cares about that.
Well, yeah, The Legend of Zelda has spin-offs. Mario also has spin-offs. Sonic has spin-offs. Like, they do.
It's just a cope, is what it comes down to. People are desperate to keep the discussion around Nintendo negative.
That's pretty ironic, coming from the guy who is determined to keep the discussion around Nintendo permanently positive and just glosses over any negativity at all and addresses it as just people coping.
And it is appalling to see in the general...
Fucking hell, if there were any longer pauses in your videos, I would honestly think that you were Joe Biden in disguise.
The general community, just how deeply rooted this mindset is, that Nintendo is failing and that they can't remain competitive and that, like...
Well, to some extent, that is true. I mean, even back in 2017, the Switch was lacking behind its competition. And then when the Series S and X and PS5 came out, it became even more lacking behind the competition. And that's not even factoring in PCs that basically get better almost on a daily basis with new components being released, which further outclasses the Switch.
The console is old and tired and can't compete, when in reality, it's other consoles that can't compete with the Switch.
I mean, literally the only advantage the Switch has over the Series X and PlayStation 5 is that it has Nintendo exclusives, but that's not even that big of a flex because the PC has more Nintendo exclusives than the Switch does. Like, honestly, what other benefits does the Switch have that those platforms don't have? Like, I'm so confused. Aside from copies sold, but even then, the PC completely shits on the Switch.
Right. My opinion, and this has always been true, is that all Nintendo would have to do is simply re-release the Switch as a more portable piece of hardware, and then suddenly, this thing will suddenly explode in popularity again, right? Suddenly, this thing is going to be more handheld, more portable, more like, you're more easily able to carry it around with you.
Dude, the Switch is light as fuck. Being able to carry it around with you is not the criticism people levy against it. Like, that's actually hilarious. Like, you would have to be, like, monumentally obese just to struggle to carry the Switch. Oh, wait. But at the same time, that's not the main criticism people have. Like, when people criticize the Switch, they criticize how expensive the games are, or the poor performance, or the poor frame rates.
And people are suddenly going to start carrying them around with them everywhere, right? Like, again, this is something that people don't realize, is that the Switch has a lot of potential for miniaturization.
I completely agree. The Switch has a shit ton of potential, and if they were to somehow engineer a handheld that had the same performance as the Xbox Series S and X, yes, the Nintendo Switch would easily become the most powerful version of any gaming console ever, almost overnight. Like, sure, it would take a little while for it to, for sales to take off, but a handheld Series X with not just AAA games and, third-party games, but also indie games and Nintendo first-party exclusives, that sounds fucking awesome, but we don't know if that's going to become reality yet.
Right, that a rebuttal or even something similar with a more portable focus. Like, again, people always say the Switch is weak.
My guy, if your platform that is supposed to be competing with current gen got outperformed by last gen in 2024, then yes, that makes you a very weak platform, at the very least in terms of performance and graphics.
But when you look at the game lineup, what exactly on Switch, what exactly on other consoles could not run on Nintendo Switch?
I think the better question to ask is what games can run on the Switch at the same quality as the Series X, PS5, and PC? And the answer is almost none of them, because the PS5, Series X, and PC are just stronger platforms. They've got better components, better hardware, they're more modern, they're better future-proofed when it comes to the PC. That is the question you have to ask yourself.
Right? Tears of the Kingdom is far more demanding and has way more going on in it than Elden Ring does. This isn't me being hyperbolic, it's just the truth.
The only truth here is that Elden Ring lives in your head rent-free. I mean, 2.5 years later, you're still complaining about Elden Ring? This is honestly fucking pathetic. Dude, get a life. And also, Elden Ring is far more technically demanding than Tears of the Kingdom. If the graphics and stuff wasn't enough to convince you, you also have a far larger world that's a lot more densely compact with content.
Right, you have bigger open worlds, you have more intense combat situations, better boss fights, more things going on. Again, the difference in quality is palpable.
Yes, I agree. Elden Ring is undeniably a better game than Tears of the Kingdom. Fight me.
But the community as a whole cannot allow that to be seen as true, right? Just like how Wind Waker was downplayed at the time, or Ocarina of Time was downplayed at the time, right? Or even now, actually, I still see people try to say that Tomb Raider was the real innovator of 3D platformers and Super Mario 64 was just a ripoff of it.
A friendly reminder that Super Mario 64 came out in 1996, meaning that he's damage controlling and simping for Nintendo games that are nearly 30 years old. So, at the very least, he's consistent, even if it's a little pathetic.
The cope.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. I was just checking my watch, waiting to see when that long-ass pause was going to end.
In regards to the anti-Nintendo bias, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about more. And
anti-Nintendo bias. So, people who don't simp for Nintendo games and like other games that aren't made by Nintendo, that just means that they are biased and anti-Nintendo. You need to touch some grass.
I will be doing my best to address these situations every time they come up, but...
So you're gonna damage control and simp for Nintendo every time someone loosely criticizes Nintendo? Well, at least you're self-aware about your incel behavior.
It's going to get worse over the next couple of months, right? You're going to see them go after Zelda. In fact, you already have seen them do that. You're going to see them go after Famicom Detective Club. You've already seen them do that.
A friendly reminder that it is okay to criticize something that you like, and it's also to praise something that you don't like. That just makes you more credible. If you do what this guy does, where you just blindly praise something or you just blindly hate something, it makes you look too biased to take an objective approach.
You're gonna see them go after Mario Party and ignore Romancing Saga 2 and everything else coming out in October, and they're gonna try demonizing Dragon Quest. They're gonna try going after...
Bro, that long-ass pause was insane. He's trying to think of games that people are gonna be, criticizing, and obviously the only ones he mentions are the ones on Nintendo Switch, because, why would you mention other games, right? He's clearly biased, it's hilarious. I love the fact that you simp so much for Nintendo, because the funny thing is that if you actually showed screenshots and weren't so fucking biased, you could genuinely be a decent critic on YouTube, but as it stands, you're just hilariously biased towards Nintendo, which I guess you admitted to earlier in the video.
Like Mario and Luigi. Like, they're going to do everything they possibly can to keep the discussion of Nintendo and their hardware negative.
Well, again, it's hard to keep the discussion positive when you factor in just how outdated Nintendo's hardware is, which I've gone over multiple times by now in this video, but just in case you skip to the end of the video, even last-gen consoles like the Xbox One and PS4, they did outperform, the Nintendo Switch. And now we have the Steam Deck and, good laptops, which, you can get decent ones for not even that expensive of a price, that, solve the whole handheld issue. So you can't even use that as a defense for the Switch anymore. So, yes, the Switch's hardware is a problem, and I really hope that they fix it with the new console. Anyways, guys, that's all from me for today. He pretty much just rambles on and repeats himself, just damage controls Nintendo games for the rest of the video. So I hope you enjoyed. Like if you did, dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel and comment down below any video topics or what have you. Feel free to join the Discord server, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.